I chose an author and an illustrator, Duncan Tunatia. Duncan was born in Mexico. He was born to a Hispanic mother and American father. He was raised in central Mexico, a small city by the name of San Miguel de Allende. Since he had dual passports, he used that to his advantage. Starting at a young age, he actually finished high school in the United States. After he finished high school, he continued on to college, and he attended Parsons, the New School for Design, and from Eugene Lane College in New York City. One of his biggest inspirations for art was for the 14th and 15th century Mixtec Codex. He likes to have a modern spin on a very old style. He wants children to be interested in his drawings, but he also wants something meaningful that ties him directly back to his roots. There are a lot of side profiles in his books. You could see it in his cover. And the ears, they look like number 3s. That's something that, if you looked up that traditional drawings, that's what's in there. But it's very traditional. He's won many awards with the books that he has written. He's won the Pura Burpre Medal, the Seibert Medal, the Thomas Rivera Mexican American Children Award, the Americas Award, the John Adams Children's Book Award, and the New York Best Illustration Children's Book Award. And I have here, Dear Primo, a letter to my cousin. This book is a great example of, one, his art. This was actually the first book that he wrote. This talks about how, he has many family members that live in Mexico, but he also has family members that live in the United States. And this book is just very interesting because it talks about, what Carlitos sees and what his cousin sees are two completely different things. Like, this is how his cousin goes to school, and this is how, they're two completely, one rides a subway and the other one rides their bike. Even the sports that they play, Carlitos plays soccer and his cousin plays basketball. Or it's called football. That traditionally it's called football. It's not called soccer, but in America we call it soccer. Even from their snack after school, Carlitos eats quesadillas and his cousin eats pizza on his way home from school. These are the kind of games that Carlitos plays, like the very traditional games. Which I remember playing all of those. I grew up. And this is his cousin, this is how they played outside of their apartment complex. They jumped rope, they hopscotched, or they played video games. Video games would not have ever been for something that Carlitos would have ever experienced. How cooling down was so different for the two of them. This book is just a true representation of how two different Latinos grew up and their cousins. So to me, I think this book is very important because it shows so much tradition and a true representation of how two different people from the exact same family grew up. So I think this book also relates into different identities. In their own family, a kid who is Mexican American that grew up in America is going to grow up so different from, your cousin who's father is from America but is raising a kid in Mexico. Like, you guys are very similar but completely different. So your identity is, it's just different. Your life experiences are so different. That is one of the main objectives that Duncan tries to portray in all of his books. If I was, and they don't get to see each other very much. They also have an idea that they should visit each other, which is another reality. I personally have family who lives in Mexico, and there's family members that I have seen once a year my whole life, but I've never been to where they live, or I've been there one time. And that's just a big reality that I think most people don't realize that most Hispanics or Mexican Americans have to deal with. If I was doing this book in a classroom for their project, I would want them to create a masterpiece in the style of drawing that Duncan uses in the book. I want them to just do this style of drawing. We can go through and have a research day to where we know and understand and get very familiar with the type of drawing that they use, so that way they get to broaden their horizons and learn a little bit about Mexican culture, style of art.